In 1985, the Soviet Union lost control of a space station. No explosion, no warning, just silence. Salyut 7, a 20-ton laboratory orbiting Earth, suddenly went dark. No power, no communication, no life support, and it was still circling the planet. If it fell, it could crash anywhere. The only solution? Send 2 men into space to board a frozen, powerless drifting station and bring it back to life. February 11, 1985. Moscow called Salyut 7. No answer. The signal vanished into static. 20 tons of steel and circuitry drifting alone, silent above the clouds. No lights, no telemetry, no heartbeat from the station. Ground control watched the screens. Data streams flatline. No way to steer, no way to command. The station began to tumble, slow, unpredictable, impossible to track with precision. Every orbit, a new risk. If it spun out of control, the batteries could freeze solid. If the fuel line split, leaking propellant could spark a fire. In space, fire means death, instant, unstoppable. If the orbit decayed, Salyut 7 would fall. Where? No one could say. A city? A sea. The heart of the Soviet Union. Or across the border, under American eyes. The Cold War hung over every calculation. The Politburo demanded answers. The engineers ran simulations. Each one ended the same. Without intervention, the station would become a frozen coffin. There was no precedent, no rescue plan, no way to fix a dead machine from Earth. The only hope was to send a crew to dock with a lifeless hulk by hand in the dark. Every option carried risk. Every risk carried consequences. And the clock was running out. No computer could solve it. The station's Kurz docking system, dead, blind, useless. No radar, no signals, no help from ground control. If a crew tried to dock on autopilot, they would miss the target or crash. If they failed, there would be no second chance. The only way forward, human hands, human eyes. A manual approach, flown by feel and instinct. Vladimir Janibekov was chosen to command. He had flown before. He had seen machines fail, and he never lost his nerve. Viktor Savinik, engineer and problem solver, was his partner. 2 men against a drifting wreck, hundreds of kilometers above the Earth. Their mission was to bring Soyuz T-13 close enough to see the battered hull through a periscope, match its wild spin, line up the docking port by hand using only thruster bursts and their own judgment. No training run could prepare them for this. The textbooks had no answers. Every movement would count. Too fast, and they would smash the capsule. Too slow, and the station might slip away forever. If the approach failed, Salyut 7 would become space junk. If the docking worked, they would face a frozen tomb inside, a different kind of death waiting. But first, they had to prove that people could do what machines could not. Janibekov and Savinik strapped in. Soyuz T-13 stood ready on the pad. The impossible plan was now in human hands. June 6, 1985. Soyuz T-13 lifted from Baikonur, rising into a sky without guarantees. 2 men, 1 shot, no backup. The station waited above, a dark silhouette against the sun, spinning, dead, cold, unpredictable. No beacons, no radio, no help from below. Janibekov gripped the manual controls. The Kurz system, the automated eyes and hands, offered nothing, only his own. Every pulse of the thrusters shaved precious fuel. Each movement had to be perfect. Too much, and they would overshoot. Too little, and Salyut 7 would drift out of reach forever. Through the periscope, the station grew larger. No lights, no sign of life. Just metal and shadow tumbling end over end. Janibekov read the spin, matched it, nudged Soyuz closer in silence. He flew by sight, by instinct, by memory. It was an approach no simulator could teach. Meters became centimeters. The docking probe extended. A breath held. The clamps engaged. Contact. For the first time, a crew had docked by hand with a dead station. Now the real danger waited behind the hatch. The hatch opened. Cold air pressed against their faces, sharp, metallic, heavy with silence. Inside, the station was a crypt. No hum of life support, no glow from the panels, only darkness and the sound of breath, loud inside their helmets, each exhale blooming into tiny crystals. Frost clung to every surface, consoles, cables, bulkheads, all glazed in white. The walls shimmered with ice, glittering in the beam of a flashlight. Their boots scraped across frozen metal. Hands thick with gloves moved slow and clumsy. Even the air bit at their skin, colder than a Siberian winter. The gauge read -10 degrees Celsius. Every movement sent clouds of frost swirling, disturbed by their bodies. The silence was total. Not even the faintest click from a relay. Just two men, their own breathing, and the endless cold. If they rushed, circuits could crack. If they powered up too soon, ice might melt and short the wires. The station felt less like a machine and more like a tomb, waiting, breath held, for the first sign of life. Inside the dead station, every move had to be exact. The air was thin, cold, and dry, perfect for a spark. One mistake, one surge, and fire would tear through the sealed cabin. Nothing survives that, not in space. Salyut worked by touch and memory. He traced frozen cables and checked every connection twice. Gloves stiff with cold, fingers numb. He rerouted wires by hand, bypassing dead circuits and isolating each system. No switch was thrown unless he was sure. No shortcuts. The batteries had to be warmed slowly and carefully, one by one. If they charged too fast, they could rupture. If they thawed unevenly, acid might leak. That meant disaster. He watched for any sign of moisture, any drip that could bridge a circuit. Each relay was tested with a whisper of power, never a surge. Lights stayed off. Heaters came on in short bursts, just enough to nudge the temperature. The station creaked as ice began to loosen. No room for error. The first flicker of power would decide everything. A single indicator blinked, a faint amber glow in the dark. For the first time since February, something answered back. Not much. Just a thread of voltage, barely enough to register on the panel. But it was there. Salyut checked the numbers, hands trembling inside his gloves. The batteries had taken a charge, not full, not safe, but enough for a test. He flipped the first switch. A relay clicked somewhere deep in the hull. Metal creaked as ice began to shift. Another light flickered, then held. The silence broke, soft, electric, alive. For a moment, Janibekov allowed himself to breathe. The station was not lost. They could feel warmth returning, slow as sunrise after a polar night. Hope, fragile as the first spark, spread through the frozen compartments, but every amp drawn was a risk. If they pushed too far, the circuits might burn. If the ice inside the walls thawed too quickly, new dangers could wake. For now, there was light. That was enough. Warmth crept back into the station. Ice retreated, but danger rushed in to take its place. Water, liquid now, escaped from every surface, freed by the slow rise in temperature. In microgravity, droplets do not fall. They break loose, become perfect spheres, and drift. Some clung to walls. Others floated, silent and invisible, searching for a place to land. Electronics flickered. Circuits, just revived, faced a new threat. A single drop inside a panel could bridge contacts, trigger a short, or spark a fire. In space, even a whisper of flame means disaster. No way to run, nowhere to hide. Salyut moved fast. He grabbed towels, pads, anything that could soak up water. He swept the air with his hands, catching droplets before they could vanish into the dark. Janibekov used airflow from the station's vents, herding moisture toward safe corners. Every move was an improvisation. Every second, a race against physics. If they missed even one drop, it could mean the end. The station was alive, but survival was still uncertain. In orbit, nothing forgives. Metal freezes, circuits die. Breath hangs in the dark. But sometimes, against every rule, hands find a way. Machines fail. Nerves don't. If tomorrow brings silence again, the question returns. Who will risk the cold? Who will answer? Let me know what you think below.